one on Monday, May 8th, 2023. Roll call, please.
Director Clark.
Present.
Director Decker.
Present.
Director Radback for Director Penrose, right?
Right. Yes, I'm here.
Yep. Okay. Director Roddick.
Here.
Director Dye.
Here.
Chair Slater-Carter.
Present.
Yo,
Very good.
Greg.
Is this on record? I didn't see the record thing.
I don't see it recording.
PCT. PCT is recording.
Okay, sorry, I'm just making sure.
That's
Sorry,
good.
guys.
Now I'm looking. Anyway, special order of the day. Adopt resolution 5-2023, a resolution recognizing George Long for his 35 years of service at Sewer Authority. So would you like to read that, please, Keisha?
Yes, before I go on to the resolution, I'd like to say a few words, and some of my staff would like to talk a little bit about George Long. So, George Long joined us on April 16th, 1988. Well, he's been going through all the different departments. He was a collection maintenance worker, then operator training, operator 1, 2, 3, and now he's a lead operator. So he is also the shop steward. And I must say that he has sacrificed all his Sundays to be at SAM. He's been literally coming every Sunday and working at SAM. So I would now request my colleague staff members to say a few words about George Long. Who's next, Tim?
Tim's
Me?
first. Yes.
Okay. I spent some time writing this. This is weird because it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of humorous. Okay. My lords, my ladies, and everyone else here not sitting on a cushion. Today, you find yourselves all equals. We're all equally blessed. For I have the pride, the privilege, nay, the pleasure of introducing to you a man sired by knights, a man who can trace his lineage back to Charlemagne. I first met him in a kiosk near San Gregorio, educating beachgoers about the dangers and the power of the ocean. Next, he amazed me while working at a lumber yard in Half Moon Bay. He would load lumber for a local contractor and sometimes have to monitor these loads for days for the contractor to return from the watering hole. He knows who I'm talking about. His career here started as a collection worker, where his tenacity and work ethic propelled him further down this rabbit hole of environmental protection. He moved into maintenance, where he tested his own resiliency by taking a 20-foot fall through an open hatch to an aluminum grate that broke his fall. Amazed, we should all not be calling this George's sewer plant, and yet we don't. He applied to the operations division, where he juggled his multiple challenges in life while still staying focused on the task at hand. He was instrumental during the startup and commission of the last treatment plant upgrade and continues to be an asset to troubleshooting and problem solving. He responded to a leaking hypo tank and was instrumental in not having the treatment train completely buggered up and killing the plant. Imagine, if you would, walking by the primary clarifiers and having them being completely white from chlorination. That's how bad it was. And that would have wiped out the entire plant. Together, we have seen many challenges, many managers, many board members as they have come and go and come again. Over 35 years I've spent with this man. There has likely been more waking hours we have spent together between emergencies, crazy long days that turned into weeks, routine days, holidays, weekends. Really, we are more like a typical dysfunctional family than we are just coworkers. And so, without further gilding the lily and with no more ado, I give to you the seeker of salmonella, the protector of the Pacific, the enforcer of Enterococcus, the one, the only, George Joseph Long.
Woo!
Hey,
Wow.
that was something. That was super.
And so, any more comments?
I would like to say something about George, if that's okay.
Please.
Yes.
Okay, George, this is going to be quick because internet out here in the boonies is kind of sketchy and I want to make sure I get to say what I want to say. So I'd just like to say how valuable you are to Sam, to our plant, and to staff. The knowledge in your head and how your brain works to figure out solutions to issues that come up, I think are very impressive. I'm sure that Gabe, David, Keith, Aaron, and Fetu have all or will benefit at some point the knowledge you have to offer. And you're kind of like our version of Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're wise beyond your years at Sam. And now, from now on, we're going to call you the GOAT. And that's it.
Yes.
Hey, who's next?
I can go next.
Please.
Oh,
So I love George. We butt heads a little bit, but it's like almost a father and son way to butt heads. We both have a really good way of looking at the plant. And what I really, really appreciate about George is that he has a complete desire to do the right thing and to make sure the plant's working right. And his, like Susie said, his skills for troubleshooting are phenomenal. And we had some sort of small hypo leak and we had to go find a fitting, and I just followed behind him. I just wanted to learn from him. And so I'm sorry that he's towards the end of his career because I'd like to learn more from him, but I will try to absorb as much as I can from you in the last few years that you have here. So thank you.
thank you.
No.
I want to say a couple words. Look like everything has already been told about George. So the only thing that I can say is that I've been working with him 21 years only. So as you heard everybody else, he's trained me when I begin to work, and now like we still learning in this place, and we butt heads in this place, but all with the only intention of make Suratori better. I mean, whenever we get in disagreements, it's because we want to work on get the plant perform better every day. So I really, I'm happy that we are together, and I hope he stays just long enough, maybe until he gets something that he's been wanting from Suratori.
Oh, retiring illegal. Yes, Charles Murphy care.
That's a little long.
Yeah.
No, just keep working here, time flies.
All right.
Okay, keep it. Anybody else?
Okay.
Oh, please.
I've been wastewater for 30 years with another agency, so I'm fairly new here. But the team effort that I see this man put upon the group, what a great team. And he's right up there with them. He's just a good team player, and a good builder. And I worked, like I said, 30 years at an agency, and I like what he does as a team builder.
And I'm going to add, I've known George for an awful long time. And his sense of humor and his teamwork shows here. And it is one of the things that makes him a special place in many ways. And it is all of your work shows because we have clean beaches. We have clean streets. Our cities don't smell kind of funny. So I appreciate what you've done and your leadership and training. You are a good teacher, and that's really, and a good leader, and that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you.
And he's a good fellow. On top of it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So Keisha, do you want to read the resolution?
Yeah. Georgie Evans has to. Yep.
Yes, if I could, just for a moment, it's so nice to hear all these nice things said about George Joseph. I would like to ask George Joseph directly if he would please retire as soon as possible so I could no longer be the second best George Joseph at saying. Thanks, George.
Thanks, George.
Okay. So this is a resolution commending George Joseph Long for 35 years of service as a collections maintenance worker 1 and 2, operator in training, operator 1, 2, and 3, and lead operator. Resolved by the Board of Directors of the Sewer Authority, Midcoastside, San Mateo County, California, that whereas George Long started with Sam on April 16, 1988. Whereas George has served as a collections maintenance worker 1 and 2, operator in training, operator 1, 2, 3, and lead operator. Whereas George Long has given selflessly of his time over 35 years, working at all hours of the day and night, in good weather and in bad, and under conditions that were sometimes unpleasant, to keep the authority's facilities running smoothly and efficiently. Whereas George has presided over and maintained a key role in keeping the plant running and this coastside and its communities safe. Now, therefore, it is ordered as follows. This board, on behalf of the citizens of the towns of Montara, Moss Beach, El Granada, and the city of Half Moon Bay, does hereby commend George Joseph Long for his service as a collections maintenance worker 1 and 2, operator in training, plant operator 1, 2, and 3, and lead operator of the Sewer Authority Midcoastside, and by this resolution does hereby express its appreciation for his service to this authority, the board, and the community. The board would like to wish George well as he continues his professional pursuits with the authority and let him know that he's greatly appreciated. A copy of this resolution shall be spread upon the minutes of this authority, and the secretary of this authority be hereby directed to transmit a duplicate copy hereof to George Joseph Long. May I request Chair to hand over the plaque to George Long?
My pleasure, George.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes.
I need a picture too.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
There you go. You're holding it backwards. Yeah.
You're supposed to,
1, 2, 3. All right.
And do I give this original to him, or do you take photocopies of it, or?
I believe we do something with it.
Okay. It is signed.
we'll take it and then
You'll take it.
present it, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as you can tell, I work with a lot of great people.
I know.
These are really great people. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
I get all that, but I don't deserve half of that, I can tell you.
Well, that's true, but.
Thank you.
Okay,
Very impressive. Great way to start the meeting. Thank you.
yes. Let's go through public comment and the consent agenda. And then with the board's concurrence, I'd like to have a short closed session for a little while. Jeremy, how long do you think this discussion will take?
10 minutes.
Okay, so we can go into closed session for, I'll say 15 minutes. And we have a letter that we received from Half Moon Bay that I believe necessitates this discussion. Is it available to the public on the website?
No, I don't believe we have that up.
Since the whole board received it under the Brown Act, it needs to be available for the public.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
So if, while we're in closed session, is there, somebody can put it on our website at the very least?
I'll make a phone call to see what we can do.
Yeah, we'll see what we can figure out.
I appreciate that.
Maybe we can read it out for the benefit of the public.
I can do it. Oh, I can put it on the website right now.
Right on.
Okay.
Thank you, Susie.
And that's a good idea to read it. I will read it before we go into closed session. Let's do the public comment, oral communication for items not on the agenda first. I don't see any hands. Do we have anybody in the audience or on the board who would like to make a comment? Wow, seeing no comment. Oh, there we go. Hello, Carlisle Ann.
Hi. I was having just a little bit of trouble unmuting, and I'm here as public member, but also a member of the MWSD. And I wanted to say, please save the date. We're going to be having a 20-year celebration of acquiring the water system and our 35th anniversary of acquiring the sewer district. And that's going to be on Saturday, September 9th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
September 9th?
And yes, September 9th. Okay. All right. Do I see no other hands up? Let's move on to the consent agenda, which is approve the minutes of April 24, 2023, approve disbursements for May 8, 2023, and authorize the SAM chair to send a response letter to the Midcoast Community Council regarding requests for improved telecommunications service in the Midcoast of San Mateo County. We have a motion. We have a motion by Barbara. Second by Deborah. And a question from Matt.
I'd like to pull item 4A.
4A, yeah. Which is the minutes.
Right.
Okay, let's do that. Let's vote on items B and C. Roll call. We're half on Zoom, or we can just approve it by consensus, whichever.
Okay. Director Clark.
Aye.
We're consenting to items B and C on the consent agenda. So Clark says yes.
I say yes.
I say yes.
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 Yes, that was easy. Do you have a short comment on item A?
I think so. It's from the minutes of the last April meeting, 5B, and in the paragraph below the title of the item, it says Director Penrose moved and Director Rohrbeck seconded the motion to authorize the general manager to submit the budget to the member agencies on the condition that MWSD and GCSD stipulate to allowing the city of Half Moon Bay to pay under protest. And it's my recollection is that we all agreed that Half Moon Bay could pay under protest without asking, just do it. And that actually the stipulation that was being requested was to insert or to print somewhere a condition that when and if the city won the appeal of the lawsuit, that they would get paid back for all the money that they think they're owed on the IPS.
I believe you are correct, and we need that detail.
Yeah.
Shall we bring back?
Shall we bring it back and just have those changes made?
I can't vote on this because I was not here, so Harvey will have to.
I was here, and
so do you agree with the changes, Harvey?
I'm not absolutely sure. Can you repeat again what?
Well, you didn't, the city directors didn't request a stipulation to be able to be allowed to vote under or to pay under protest, but that a stipulation that if the appeal of the lawsuit turns out in the city's favor, that the city would be repaid for what they were about to vote to pay.
Yeah, that was the stipulation. Yeah, okay, I'll go along
It
with
doesn't sound right to me, but is it possible to just hold this over till the next meeting and we can check with our staff?
Well, no, let's not check with staff, but let's listen to the meeting or watch the tape.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think everything's recorded now, so it should be pretty simple to find out.
Yeah.
Yep.
We can listen to that again, and then I'll run it by Jeremy, and then if you wish, we can bring it back to the next meeting.
Okay. Okay.
And
it'll need to come back because it hasn't been approved yet, so it'll need to come back at some point.
Right.
Okay.
At the next meeting. So today at about I received it sometime after 4 o'clock. There was a note sent to Keishan Prathvidi, General Manager at SAM. Dear Keishan, I am writing to express the City of Half Moon Bay's concerns with SAM's proposed general budget for 2023-24, which is on today's SAM board agenda. The proposed budget includes a $3.5 million infrastructure item funding the Montero Force Main Replacement Project, Heron's capital project. The budget proposes to allocate 62% of the cost of the Montero Force Main project, in other words, $2.15 million to the city ratepayer. The city remains committed to funding SAM operations for the next fiscal year. Our board members are therefore prepared to move the proposed 23-24 budget forward on the condition that the Montero Force Main project is removed. The project has not been scoped. The budget documents indicate that this year's requested $3.5 million is only a starting point for the overall cost to replace the Montero Force Main. The project sheet notes that costs are to be determined for the next subsequent 4 fiscal years. Sound budgeting principles dictate the removal of this item pending the completion of the feasibility assessment and detailed scope and recommended budget for the proposed design and environmental work associated with the project. Furthermore, the SAM member agencies currently do not have agreement on how to fund this IPS project in light of the pending litigation. In addition, the city urges SAM to consider the financing tools as an alternative to pay-as-you-go. With financing options available, SAM's member agency can spread out these capital expenses with more predictability and stability for their respective ratepayers. Sincerely, Matthew Chittister. And with that, I'd like for us to go into closed session for 10 to 15 minutes. And so everyone on Zoom who isn't going to be in closed session needs to sign off. And guys, 7:30. Thank you for coming. Should we start over talking about the auditor? We've got the auditors. Why don't we just start talking about the auditor, and so that it's here in case there's problems, and we can just say that the committee did a really good job and they've made a great recommendation. And everything you need to know will be in the minutes, just in the agenda. Yes. How do you pronounce their name?
Nigro.
Nigro and Nigro. Good.
They were very, just to come again, they were very impressive. They gave a good presentation. I agree, it's time to have a new auditor. They seem to have good experience, good team assigned to us, and they use the same information uploading system that the folks here, the team here currently uses. So that makes it a little easier for.
And price wise, they were also competitive.
They were all competitive, yeah.
I think we should make it a point to put in the folder, the file for new auditing firms, that's a requirement, is they use the same data uploading, if at all possible, so that it's easier on staff and on the public when you're looking at these things.
At least make it one of the information points is what system do they use. So
yes.
That can be part of that.
Yes, yes.
And also NNN has given us, Nigro has given us a proposal for 5 years. So it's not 3 years, but 5 years.
That's good.
Yeah, and staff seem to be, good with the recommendation too. So
yeah,
staff was part of the interview process.
Wonderful. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Peter. A second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Barbara. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I look forward to having this new firm. Item B, regular business. Discuss proposed general budget for fiscal year 23-24 and authorize the general manager to submit it to the member agencies for approval. Ishan.
So this item is brought back to the board again. We discussed it at length at the last board meeting. Now, there was a request from GCSD directors to give the breakup of the $3.5 million, which has been indicated in the infrastructure budget. And we did come out with that, although it's not being circulated, but I have circulated the spreadsheet to each of the directors, but the gist of it is what I'm going to say right now, which will be put on the website later on too. Now, we have considered, as you all know, a contract has been awarded to SRT Consultants a couple of months back by the SAM board to come back and present various options of the force main. And this is a pre-design, which they're supposed to come back in a couple of weeks from now. So without knowing what design the SAM board would be recommending, I have considered the best case scenario and the worst case scenario, taking into consideration both the options, which means that if the SAM board decides to replace the force main in kind, meaning the same size and the same alignment as it exists right now, then we are sure that we would not have to go through any extensive environmental requirement. We would probably go with a neck deck and also with a CDX, which is a coastal development permit exemption. So that is the best case scenario. Now, the worst case scenario would be if the SAM board decides that we should change the size, change the alignment, then the worst case scenario would be to do a full-blown EIR, which is going to take a lot of time and it's going to cost money too. So therefore, what I have estimated, this is just a budgetary estimate based on the scenarios that I've already explained. I've considered that the best case scenario would be a total cost of about $9.2 million, $9.186 million. And the worst case scenario would be $1 million more, which would be $10 million, $1.5 million more, it would be $10,686,000. So what is envisaged is in the best case scenario for a $9.186 million, the planning, environmental, legal, and administrative costs are assumed to be $686,000, out of which $686,000. The estimated design cost is $500,000, out of which we have already gotten approval for the $186,000 design costs pre-design costs being done by SRT consultants. And the construction cost is estimated to be about $8 million, which totally comes out to about 9.186, which roughly works out about $650 per feet. Now the infrastructure budget for 23-24, considering the best case scenario, is planning of about 500,000, design costs of about 500,000, and the construction costs of about $2.5 million. So that takes care of about $3.5 million, which has been budgeted for this year, for the upcoming year, 23-24. Now, considering the worst case scenario, which would be the total cost of about 10.686, the breakup of the 10.686 is the planning, environmental, legal, and administration costs would probably be around 1.686. This is assuming it will be a full-blown EIR and also pursuing the coastal development permit. The estimated design cost is going to be the same, 500,000, because we presume the number of sheets will be more or less the same, the drawing sheets, so there'll not be so much of a change. The construction cost will be $8.5 million. 8.5 million only for the total cost. The total cost would be $10,686,000. So for this year, this year's budget, which is 23-24 budget, we would then estimate planning to be $1.5 million, design cost would be $500,000, and construction cost to be $0. So that would be around $2 million as of now.
What is the 1.5 million in planning? What is that?
That would be the planning for environmental, legal, administration costs, including if it was in full-blown EIR, part of it.
Well.
Okay, so I'm here to answer any questions.
Move off it high.
Yeah. Well.
That is why it is a budgetary estimate without knowing what we're looking for.
I would suggest that we can talk about this far and wide and long and short. And in the end, our obligation is to keep SAM running, and to not only keep SAM running, but to also make sure that you're not exposed to a very expensive lawsuit in the future on the side of ERF. So I make a motion to approve the budget with the $3.5 million as suggested, and proceed with our work, which is to replace the force main as is suggested by ERF in our agreement with them.
I'll second that.
Okay, directors, you do have a public comment. I don't know if you want to take that now, but you have one.
Sid? Sorry, Carlisle.
Thank you. Under this is for Keishan. Under what circumstances would the costly worst case scenario be enacted?
The worst case scenario would be enacted if the board decides to change the size of the pipe and change the alignment of the pipe.
Thank you.
Okay, Greg?
On behalf of the community, I would like to understand in the future, if the board decides to change the alignment or the size, what the reasons are, what the return on investment, if you will, is from such a change. And I would also note that in reviewing the letter received from Half Moon Bay, this budget is spreading out the costs over 3 years. If we end up borrowing at 5%, over half the money that will be spent will go to the lenders. So it's not just smoothing out the payments, it's increasing the cost for a generation to come. And this is a problem that public works agencies here and across the country have had. They've been addicted to debt. Those are the words of the head of the Rates and Charges Committee of the American Water Works Association. Do not borrow, fund it, and build your reserves. Otherwise, half the money is going to go to the lenders. And that is unfair to the ratepayers, except in emergency circumstances, and this is not that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's bring it back to the board. We have a motion and a second and discussion. Let's start with Matthew, then Barbara.
I have a couple questions. it's correct that all of this $3.5 million would be directed solely toward that, the ERF project, I mean, correct?
Correct. That's what it is in the packet that is with you and which is posted on the website. The entire $3.5 million is for the SAMS Montara Force Main, and that is the only project for the infrastructure in the upcoming 23-24 budget.
I just wanted to point that out for the public. Are there any CIP projects for the last fiscal year or the one before that are not finished that need more funding?
Probably, because a lot of them are, the orders have been placed and the install is yet to take place. So once the equipment arrives, then we go out for bidding for the contractors. And of course, we bring it back to the board for approval. At that point of time, we will know whether we would need more money.
So we may be looking at budget amendments down the road for 2 fiscal years or 1 fiscal year ago?
Probably. It all depends on how things go, Director Clark. But I would like to mention that for the past couple of years, although there's been an increase, we haven't come back for a media budget adjustment, but we'll do our best possible.
I think I understand what this $3.5 million is directed at, but does the staff think that this will include any real construction in that this upcoming fiscal year?
It will. The construction is accounted for if the board decides to replace in kind. That would be the best case scenario. So we can still plan for construction in the fiscal year of 23-24.
Well, mindful of that we don't have an agreement on extension or anything else with ERF yet. And this $3.5 million seems sort of incoherently aimed at various things to me. I'm going to suggest that we don't spend that much money. We don't know what's going to happen with ERF. And it could get really bad. It could get really much better. We don't know. So I suggest that we go a good deal lower than this.
Yeah, maybe I didn't explain it clearly, Director Clark. If we go for the best case scenario, we will still not be able to complete the project in 23-24. We can try, but a small portion would still be left over for the 24-25.
Barbara? I haven't yet heard any credible engineers and so forth saying that we need to increase the pipe or change the alignment. I mean, it just seems completely logical to put it in the same place. And it's also my understanding that the consensus among the engineers is that it will take us a full year to do the analysis, the planning, the environmental review. If there's the worst case scenario for some reason, then maybe we do a budget adjustment. But I'd like to see us plan for the money that we're going to need in the year ahead and then get more answers about the next phase and what it's going to cost and so forth.
I think we would agree with you on that.
Are we talking about the $3.5 million?
No, talking about $1 million.
Sorry?
$1.5 million, maybe.
Yeah, I'm concerned that $3.5 million is not going to get us, construction. It's not going to get us a complete project. And I'm also concerned that we didn't see this breakdown until almost end of the business day today. And the managers and engineers haven't had a chance to look at the numbers. It just seemed, I have a concern about lack of process. And I know staff does as well. The other concern looking at the budget is that if you look at the infrastructure budget, I mean, right now it's just the Montara Force Main. That's what it looks like. And, we've been talking now for months about the issue of infrastructure spending and construction where things are carried over budget years, things get delayed. We're in the middle of some projects. that are going to have a call, in our funding. So I'm concerned about, that as well. To do exactly as staff is recommending here, but we have some ideas, but we share all those concerns, and we're doing a feasibility study right now. We may end up in the same alignment, but a decision has already been made, and there's already a budget item that I think should satisfy ERF. We don't have an agreement with, extending. So we are spending money in pursuit of getting this project done. So I'm just all that to say that we share.
And I think the fact that our entire budget is allocated toward this planning and permitting and creating a bid package task shows our commitment to the task.
Now, if you look back over the previous year, we had a CIP budget of $3 million. Now we have a CIP budget of $3.5 million. That is not that big of a difference. That is only a $500,000 difference. So in that sense, to say that we have never seen these numbers before and we are way too high, then how come we ended up with $3 million for the last year that we all approved?
Because last year there were specific line items like replacing the Princeton pump station, a lot of things that really needed to be done.
Yeah.
Right now we're being asked to approve 3.5 million. And I'm sorry, but putting numbers into a spreadsheet doesn't make them more detail behind them. I mean, it seems that.
But I'm sorry also, but this project should have started years ago. When we signed that agreement with ERF, we should have started right there and then. And what happened then that nobody wanted to even think about this project or shoved it in the long term, knowing very well that there would be an end date to this. And the end date to this is 2024, unless we have an agreement with the ERF that extends that deadline.
What's that extra $2 million for?
The $2 million is set aside to finish the project.
We don't have a way to set money aside. And why don't we just set it aside?
We have set aside money all along in all these previous years. What happens is when you have a budget of $3 million and you spend only $2 million, the $1 million is still available to be spent the next year.
I would like to say, I'm in a kitty someplace. Agencies are paying their bills.
I would like to say that if you don't learn from your history, then you're going to get burned twice. And we have a long pattern of not getting things done and the costs going up. This pipe and others were identified in a 2009 study. And one of the pipes that broke was identified there, and that's why we got the lawsuit from ERF.
And yet, don't interrupt me. That it was in perfect condition.
Another report did not say it was in perfect condition. It said it wasn't going to fail immediately. That said, and please do not interrupt me, what we're talking about is multiply faceted. One is whether or not Montera and Granada will sign a stipulation, because at any price, Montera and Granada will not sign a stipulation. So that might be the first thing we need to iron out. But Montera's position is that we would like to get this done. We actually started budgeting for this years ago. We actually have the money and don't need loans. And we have the rate base to have it come in. I am concerned that we might get a lawsuit from our ratepayers if we didn't approve this budget, because we're looking at extra dollars from ERF. We're looking at bad faith agreement or considerations from the regulatory agencies. And I noticed several things in Half Moon Bay's letter. And I've asked several attorneys, and I have been told that if a project is not going to be an expansion or a change, so I'm very concerned that this says the project has not been properly scoped. Why does Half Moon Bay want the project scoped if we're just going to do a neg deck and get it going? I have talked to several engineers today, and in fact, I was told that if we started spending the money, we could get this project mostly done by June of 2024. Instead of delaying it 5 years to all of the inflationary costs, supply chain costs, and all of the other extraordinary costs that we will be asked to pay. Montera has the money. We don't want to pay it. We won't pay. Let me rephrase that. We will not pay any increased costs if this is not funded and if the budget is not passed as necessary. And so we do want to move the budget forward. We've made a motion and a second to move it forward. Sure. And my belief and my understanding is that, as usual, once we approve a budget, any project on the budget or any segment of any project that needs approval by the board does come to the board. A budget is only a planning document. It's not the 10 commandments or whatever commandment, other number of commandments one wants to have. And so I would recommend that we simply pass it, and we can deal with this other stuff later. I also think that what I don't want to see is a conflation of two lawsuits. One is the environmental ERF lawsuit, to which we signed a consent decree. Half Moon Bay signed it, Montera, Granada. That's to get this done, and that was 5 years ago. And we were working on getting it done, and as I recall, there was one agency here who was not Montera or Granada who wanted to have a condition assessment done on the pipeline to put it off. Montera and Granada agreed with having that done. The condition assessment did not say it will last for the next 50 years. It didn't say it's a permanent fixture. Everything wears out. And so that was known. And the other, so we've got this lawsuit with the agreement that we signed, all of us, with ERF and was overseen by a judge. Now we have the lawsuit waiting on the appeal about the JPA. This is not a JPA project. This is a project that is in the infrastructure section of the budget because it's a pipeline, but it's there because of the agreement with ERF, not because for any other reason. And I believe that Half Moon Bay should affirm its commitment to clean beaches and the environment by fully funding this so we can get it done as soon as possible, because it is in fact an environmental lawsuit, and just leave the JPA lawsuit separate because the stipulation is for a different case. It's not for this one. So hopefully Half Moon Bay will choose to get the environmental and the maintenance work and the replacement work done that needs to be done without forcing a scoping session or having the project scoped, because we're just going to do it as a neg deck. And I think Montera and Granada are both in agreement that we only want a mere replacement, not an expanded project. Maz.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Apologies, I couldn't be there in person. There's a couple of comments and I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. I think with regard to the study on the pipe sizing and location, one of the things that the engineers talked about was more specifically to the method of construction and how we can build a system that has adequate backups for future cleanings and inspections and monitoring. And so that was actually the reason we considered this alternative location, because if you replace it in the same place, you're talking about above ground pumping. And that's an additional cost associated with that. So that was just that. I just wanted to just highlight that was one of the reasons and rationale for that alternative being even discussed. It was really about redundancy and making sure that we built something that we could have a bypass during times of cleaning and maintenance. I just wanted to make a comment on that. And then with regards to the concerns about the project itself and the budget, I just have to echo that comment that, you know, we just found out about it as well. And I was a little surprised to see it without having a chance to talk to Kish and understand that he's busy, and a lot of the stuff was done quickly. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify a little bit on that and just touch base a little bit on how we came to that concept about the different iterations. Thank you.
Thank you. Keisha.
Yeah, first and foremost, I'd like to emphasize that it is a not to exceed $3.5 million. And SAM staff brought it to the SAM board in the month of January for replacing it in kind. And that was the best case scenario. And that's when SAM board took a decision that we should consider various alternates. And then we came back with a proposal from SRT, and SRT is right now working on it. SRT Consultants is right now working on it, and the study will be brought back to the board sometime in July or so whenever it's ready. And that, of course, will give you several cost options, various alternates. We do understand that the JPA does not permit the SAM to separate the infrastructure budget from the operations budget. And I've heard several directors saying, $3.5 million. How come it's $3.5 million? It's too high. And the breakup is too high. The environmental is too high. Of course, it's too high because it's the worst case scenario. And we can't possibly estimate without a design. How can you ever estimate without a design, without even finalizing the design? You're asking SAM to assess the cost without an estimate of where we want to go. So that's why it's high. So I have one suggestion. If the JPA does not allow us to delink the infrastructure from the operations budget, from the general budget, then go ahead and put $1 for infrastructure budget, and go ahead and please approve the budget. $1 in infrastructure budget, let all the agencies see that's all what we can decide right now. Fine, at least the budget will get passed for the major part of the amount, and we would not be violating the JPA. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara.
I like that in principle. I'd put $1 million in there because there will be costs, and it's going to take us time to figure all this out. There are things we're going to have to pay for before that. But I like that concept with the understanding that we will come back when we get more solid numbers. We're going to pay our share. Absolutely. We believe in this project. We believe that Sam can put it together. There are a lot of other things going on this year too. We've been finishing this past year's infrastructure. If just the Princeton pump station replacement is a very big project. But I know we have a motion on the table, but maybe we should vote on that and then see if we can find. I agree. We have to have a budget. That's the important thing. And if we have to come back and continue to work on this aspect of the budget, fine. I'd be fine with that too. So I'm prepared to vote for a budget tonight, but
yeah, I would like.
We have the vote for a full $3.5 million blank check budget tonight.
Well, let's first go through my motion.
Yeah. Let's go through your motion. I'd like to hear from Keishan and then Jeremy before we vote.
Yeah, I would like to emphasize that this is a budget. This is an estimated amount. And as you know, in the past, we have to come back to the board for making any, for ordering anything. So this is just an estimate. It's not like starting tomorrow, we're going to start working on the Montana Force Main. We have to bring it back to the budget for each and every stage. We have to bring it back to the board for approval. So this is just an estimated budget that we are seeking the board to approve, and just to take it to the next step, which is take it to the respective board or the council, and then finally bring it back to the SAM board. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy.
Yes, thank you. Just really quick to emphasize, this is not an optional thing to do the Montero Fork Main replacement. It is a must do. And right now it's a must do in a little over a year. And so we're trying to extend that with ERF, but any kind of effort, if they don't see good faith funding, I'm not sure that helps. So anyway, it's something that has to get done. How the members divide up the costs, right? That's for the JPA agreement. I know there's disagreements on that, but it does need to get done, and it does need to get done fairly quickly.
No one is disputing that it should not be done. What we're questioning is the feasibility of the project until SRT comes back with what can be done. We think it's irresponsible to budget this $3.5 million, even if it's a not to exceed number, until we know the situation. We understand that time is of the essence for the ERF lawsuit. We're not trying to delay it unnecessarily, but we want to be responsible about finding out what it's actually going to cost and whether or not we have to change the alignment, whether we have to change the material. And we need to know that first. So Half Moon Bay is not prepared to fund that infrastructure project until we get the results back from the SRT study.
And what about the stipulation?
Well, that would be moot if the first part of our idea that we wait until we hear what the project possibilities are. We also believe that the other agencies should stipulate that if we do win the lawsuit, we will claw back our spending on the IPS issues.
Claw back is a good word, thank you.
Yeah.
Question. Slow down. Matthew.
We hear that this is a $3.5 million estimate. I don't think we have a clear idea of estimate of what. How far will we get? It's now, we have heard that that will not get us to construction. What can we realistically do in the next fiscal year? We can do design, the environmental, and permitting. I don't think anyone thinks, pardon?
And bid package.
And bid package. I don't think anyone thinks that's going to cost $3.5 million. So I don't know I don't know what this estimate means. And for what we can realistically do in the next fiscal year, I think it's easily double what those 4 things should cost. And it also does demonstrate to ERF that we are moving on the project. There's not a shovel in the ground, but they have to understand that you don't just send the crew out tomorrow and start digging. So I don't get it. I don't see why we should approve $3.5 million for something that there could easily be $2 million left after those 4 things are done.
And then we can projects we can spend the $2 million on.
Oh, that's also true. There are still projects from previous fiscal years that need funding, and those will have to be specific amendments to the budget. So if we're holding this, say, $2 million for this one specific need, then we have to come up with that other money somewhere else. So I can't support $3.5 million.
Think that $3.5 million estimate is something we should commit to so we can get all of our work done. We can always amend the budget for planning purposes, for ratepayer information. it's important for ratepayers to have a solid understanding of what the costs are going to be. I remember some years back where people, agencies and individuals were all very upset because we had to come in for more money mid-year. Right now, we're owning up to the fact that there is that much capital improvement that needs to be done. And instead of hanging it all, instead of coming back for more money and telling the public, oh, we didn't plan right. We knew we had to have more money, but we didn't want to put it in the budget. I think that's not very transparent. So I will call the question. I see I see one more hand, Jeremy.
It's just a question that might help folks kind of think about this a little bit more. When would SRT be in a position to provide an input on some of the scoping and some of the costs? How long until you talk about having that information?
I believe it would be the first meeting in July, but that will be presented to the SAM board. But keep in mind that once we present it to the board and the board takes a decision, then I'll have to make changes in the budget or incorporate that in the budget, get the SAM board to approve it, then send it to the various districts and the council for approval. Then it comes back to the SAM board for adoption. So that process itself takes 2 months. So which means not until September that the budget will get adopted.
So we will be 9 months behind on planning this project and nowhere close to putting pencil to paper to get things signed to do it. Why don't we just commit to the funding now so that we can get moving on this project as soon as we get those numbers? All right. I'd like a roll call vote on this, please.
Director Clark?
Nay.
Director Decker?
Yes.
Director Radback?
No.
Director Roddick?
No.
Director Dye?
I want us to have a budget. I want us to support the things that Sam needs to get projects done, but I'm going to vote no on this iteration of the budget.
Chair Slater Carter?
Yes.
Okay. Motion failed.
I'd like to make an alternative motion.
We don't have time to consider it. I want to be able to consider it with my general manager first.
Well, I'm going to make a motion anyway. That's my right as a director.
She could make a motion.
Make a motion, yeah.
I move to authorize the general manager to submit the budget to the agencies on the condition that the $3.5 million infrastructure item funding the Montero Force Main replacement is removed from the budget pending completion of the feasibility assessment and detailed scope and recommended budget for the proposed design and environmental work associated with the project.
Second.
Discussion?
Would you be amenable to changing your motion to put $1.5 million in there for planning and environmental review?
If you want to also amend it to direct member agencies to stipulate that we pay under protest.
The stipulation is a hard no.
Okay, let's have a roll call vote on the first item, or do we want it on the amended version?
So, yeah, I think the motion was, there was a friendly amendment offered and not accepted.
Right.
So it was just, Director Ruddick, if you want to just kind of really succinctly repeat what your motion is, it's just to approve the budget and then wait on the $3.5 million until such time as the scoping from SRT is included.
I move to authorize the general manager to submit the budget to the agencies on the condition that the $3.5 million infrastructure item funding the Montero Force Main replacement is removed from the budget pending completion of the feasibility assessment for the proposed design and environmental work associated with the project.
Much more eloquent than me. All right.
And how does that affect the, and we have a second from Harvey, how does that affect the JPA budget section?
I mean, you can approve a budget like that. I mean,
with no infrastructure.
Yeah, whether you should is a different question, but you certainly can make that motion. The motion's been made. And,
Put the other projects in that are ongoing.
Well, they're still funded from, because they're still working on them, and they still have the funding for those.
They don't have any budget items for current year?
No.
Okay. All right.
I think that sends a very bad message to ERF.
Yes,
I think if we are not at least going to fund something in there for environmental review and planning and design, then I think that's dangerous. That's going to get us in court.
I agree with you. I think the risk from ERF is the greatest risk right now in doing a risk analysis. They're the ones who have that court that consent agreement that we all signed.
Okay, so we can't agree on all, and we can't agree on nothing. Let's go in the middle.
Let's vote on this first. Roll call, please.
Director Clark?
Nay.
Director Decker?
No.
Director Radback?
Yes.
Director Roddick?
Yes.
Director Dye?
No.
Chair Slater Carter?
No.
motion fails.
Motion fails.
We have to have a budget to take to our agencies and look at. Seems like we've got to have. What about, do we have a date certain to reevaluate the infrastructure? When will we have more information? I'm very worried about not having any budget to take back. Sam needs a budget for the year ahead.
Agreed.
It's part of our job to vote on a budget. We've had two extremes. Doesn't sound like anybody's willing to look at.
The SRT will come back with their feasibility first meeting in July. Right?
Is that right?
Correct, July. To the board, to SAM board, for deciding which options to choose.
And you have enough funding to, SRT is funded. Not really, because it wasn't in last year's budget, but SRT, we as a board have approved the SRT contract. So can we pass a budget and agree to take up the infrastructure in July? Only 2 months away.
That's basically what we said.
Well, I would want it to be.
We come back, I'm sorry, sometimes many times in a year to amend the budget. Aaron, amending the budget's not a problem.
Aaron.
Might I make a have some money put away for this project? What if we propose the budget and Montero puts some of that money into the infrastructure budget, knowing that that is the money that's ready for it? It's not going to be the full $3.5 million, but it will be something for the government to show that we are trying to do this, even though we have some legal issues that we're trying to figure out. That is a compromise, and I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's a thought.
Thank you. I think that's worth considering. We have two sticking points. One is the breakdown of the numbers. The other is the stipulation. Now, Harvey, you said if we wait until July or September, a whole 7, 8, 9 months late on this, and this is a project that should have been started 5 years ago. But anyway, that you will take the stipulation off the table. Does your board member agree with you?
I didn't say that.
Yeah, you said the stipulation would become moot.
No. You misunderstood. If the motion that my colleague made had passed, the stipulation is moot because the budget then did not include anything that was related to the IBS.
Oh, so then the stipulation would then become an issue again when we rediscuss the infrastructure?
I believe so, yes.
Oh, but at least you have a budget. In the budget without the 3.5 million.
I'm completely baffled. We are making a motion that says to the ERF, we are not going to include any money at all for doing anything about the force main. That's what I understand of this motion to say. Is that the kind of call that you want ERF to know about? Is that the kind of thing that you want ERF to come out for and then say to us, okay, we heard you loud and clear. You're not investing a dime in this force main. You have a problem. You have a big problem. And I will make sure that I will fine you for this particular problem. And then we are stuck with a much bigger bill than $3.5 million.
Well, you're also potentially looking at contempt of court, and so everyone should be very aware of that. I mean, that's an issue too.
And then you end up with the judge telling you, you know what? You haven't made a budget for this. I tell you right here and now, you make the budget now or else. I give you a bigger fine.
Jeremy, could the judge make a budget for it?
You don't want the judge making a budget for you. I mean, if you're a budget doing that, you're talking about going to receivership and stuff. Let's not go there.
That's right.
Right.
That's my point.
So we are putting the whole future of Sam on what? On a pedestal that is going to fall over any time. Because any time it is being detected that we're not doing anything about the force main, we have a major problem.
We are doing something about it.
You are not. You are absolutely excluding in this motion that I just heard any money towards the replacement of the force main. Did I misunderstand that motion?
We've approved a feasibility study.
Yes.
Well, what is that doing for a force main? Other than saying
a feasibility study would be the first logical step in replacing the force main. And that's all we're saying is that we should do things in a fiscally responsible way, and getting a feasibility study of what the options are and the environmental issues involved is the beginning that we can point to as what we want to do about replacing the force main. ERF should see that. We're not saying that we're not replacing the force main. We're just trying to do it in a fiscally responsible way that is environmentally sound and does the right thing for studying the possible ways that the force main should be replaced. We're not saying that the force main should not be replaced. We're just saying that we want to do it first with the feasibility study, which the board approved. And once we know what the options are and not just flail without understanding the ramifications, because my guess is it's going to be a lot more expensive even than what Keishan said is the worst case. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong.
Any month that you're holding up the going ahead with the force main is going to mean additional funds, because every day costs increase, material costs increase, planning costs increase, all of that will inevitably result in spending more money down the road.
That's always true.
Yeah.
Now, given that we do need to show some progress with ERF, is there any number you would support in the infrastructure budget, or is zero your only?
Now without a stipulation. And as I mentioned, and we're happy to work with you on that language. So.
And this would be a stipulation literally written into the budget.
Well, I suggest you talk to your staff and ask them if we could add to the stipulation that if you lose, we want you to stipulate that you will pay Montero and Granada's attorney's fees and Sam's too.
There's a stipulation.
Yeah, let's do that.
I'll sign that. I suggest you talk it over with your staff.
All right, well, it seems to me we have to have a budget. So maybe would you, Kishan's suggestion, putting $1 and let's keep the pressure on to keep talking and solve this, because we have to figure something out.
We have to adopt a budget by July 1. There's still time. So, you know,
Well,
people should be
have to go
talking.
back to the agencies.
We're not going with $1 either. So.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
Well, let's bring this back to our next
I
agenda.
thought that's what you were saying. You're going with 0 in there. You were for that.
We're saying remove it, the item from the budget, until we have the feasibility study.
But is that the same as zeroing it out?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's move on from this item. I would like to see this. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Okay, Jeremy and then Keisha.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm just good.
Go ahead.
Should I talk?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I'm willing to work with legal counsel for the various agencies and whoever else wants to try to craft a stipulation that folks can work with, if that's something that's desirable. I'll just put that out there.
Thank you. Keisha.
Yeah, I have a suggestion. Since the board and all the agencies have agreed that we have to do a feasibility study, that there is no controversy on that. So why don't we change the infrastructure budget portion to 186,000 and move forward? So at least it'll get the operations, treatment, and all those things approved. And we all know that 186,000 is already approved by the SAM board to move forward with the feasibility study. So we'll call it as feasibility study of the SAM's Montara Force Main for the 23-24. And we all know that there would be a budget adjustment after SRT's report.
Well, we can't support that tonight, but we'll talk to our staff about it.
Let's bring it back to our next agenda. I would like to take a straw poll of the board. Would you like to have a special meeting within a week or less to discuss this?
I don't think that's necessary right now, but it may become necessary. Yeah.
Okay. So at our next meeting, next regularly scheduled meeting, moving right along, general manager's report.
Yeah, before I go to the general manager's report, I'd like to mention the same thing what I mentioned in the last board meeting, that last year we did the same exercise on March 28th. So we already a month and a half late. And I hope the board realizes the consequences that from July 1st, we will not be getting any funding from the member agencies if the budget doesn't get approved. And this will be the same situation that happened in 2017. And may I remind the board that we have been incurring a lot of expenses on the winter storm emergency expenses, almost $1.5 million. We haven't even gone for a budget adjustment. So I'm sure the board would realize what the consequences will be for SAM. The SAM at this stage, like what one of the directors mentioned, is on a pedestal. We don't know when it's going to fall off if the budget doesn't get approved. So I would like to emphasize this for the board, and please do consider this, at least getting this budget moved on to the next phase, which is to your respective board or to the respective council. We still have many more weeks before it comes back to SAM. Who knows? A lot of developments might take place by then. Thank you.
Thank you. General managers report, that was it?
Yes, the general manager's report, the detailed report normally comes in the second meeting of the month, but we would like to bring to you all a report from the CWEA conference, which we attended in San Diego. A couple of us did, me and some of my staff members. So we have Aaron Gilbert here, who has compiled what was learned at the CWEA conference and would like to make a short presentation. Yes, Aaron, you can go on and hop onto the PowerPoint, please.
Appreciate everybody being here tonight. My name is Aaron Gilbert. I'm an operator here at SAM, and I was able to go to the CWEA conference, annual conference this year. It was a wonderful opportunity for me to learn and to network and to expand my understanding and possibilities that are going to happen in the future in the wastewater and water industries. This is what I was able to go over. It was 4 days of classes. We learned about direct potable reuse, biosolids, and innovative troubleshooting, along with leadership training. I'm going to go over each of those just briefly and explain what they are and what I learned. First and foremost, before we understand direct potable reuse, where we can take sewer water and turn it into drinking water, we need to understand a little more about recycled water and what it would take for our facility to produce recycled water. We would have to use ultrafiltration membrane bioreactors, UFMBRs. The pore size of these are 20 to 100 nanometers. That's 1/1,000,000th of a meter, which is incredibly small, amazing technology. There are hollow fiber tubes, so essentially pipes with tiny, tiny holes in them, and water is pulled through them. As you can see in the caricature off to the right, you can see bugs and particulates that we don't want, and then dissolved particles of water that are able to go through. This produces, if this were implemented in our facility, it would produce incredibly clean recycled water. We are at a stage in our treatment and our ability where we're almost producing recycled water quality without meeting the state mandate. By using the ultrafiltration membrane, we would then produce state quality recycled water. It would take minimal changes to our facility. We could place a MBR in between the secondary clarifier and the chlorine contact tank, be able to put that in there and then be able to just move on. We'd have a couple extra valves in case we had to make some changes if there are any issues, but this would be a very small addition and very efficient and effective. Currently on top, this is our very generalized understanding of how we treat. We have rag removal, primary treatment, aeration zone, that's where we have the bugs that remove all the fecal matter. And then we have secondary clarifiers and then disinfection of the water as it goes out into the ocean. What we would have to do is we just have to add just between the secondary clarifier and the disinfection process to create recycled water. Very simple and easy addition. So direct potable reuse, DPR, it's more treatment than recycled water. What the state is requiring us to do is several other changes past what you do with recycled water. And these are things that they are saying are not right now, but they are imminent. Now, the timeline, they're not wanting to talk about, but it's something that we as a community should be aware of, that someday the state of California may say, we've been in a drought for 10 years, you need to be able to make your sewage water drinking water. That'd be really tough for us if we're not prepared for it. A couple things we'd have to look at. We'd have to add a huge diversion, whether we could go to our normal process or over to the DPR process. We would have to add ozone contact tanks, biologically activated carbon filters, microfiltration, which is similar to an MBR, reverse osmosis, and then ultraviolet and advanced oxidative process, which is where you add chemicals to the UV system and it makes it more effective. In this process, it removes a lot of the harsh chemicals and the worries that we have. Ozone's a great one for that. And then also the oxidative process here, the UV and hypo can mix together the strong bleach and it can get rid of a lot of the harsh chemicals that are in the water that people are worried about. Essentially, we'd have to create a whole new facility. We'd have to have 2 people who were grade 5 AWT operators. It's a new operator thing that's coming out. It would not be very difficult for the operators here to get that certification. Just have to study for a couple months and then take the test. But this is essentially what we would need for direct potable reuse. And like I said, it's not mandated, but it's something that we should be aware of in case they do mandate it on us one day. Biosolids, this is always a wonderful topic. I love this topic. With anaerobic digesters, you can produce really neat stuff. First of all, you can get methane gas, which you can get to cause energy for not only for your facility, but to heat the digesters themselves. What's really cool is that you can actually have a profit from this. There are several plants who are receiving FOG, fats, oil, and grease from different communities. They bring it to their digesters, and the digesters use it to produce gas. They then have cogeneration engines that not only create heat for the anaerobic digesters, but also electricity. That electricity, if it's not fully used on the plant, can then be used onto the grid. And so they can get paid for that electricity. It's a really neat process. One of our major budget issues is electrical costs. That's one of the major things, especially having an aeration system. By having a cogen system on there where you produce electricity, you save a lot of money that way. So it's just something to consider. They talk a lot about removing harmful substances. State Bill 1383 was passed, and they're talking about more and more land application, and people are very worried about PFAs and stuff like things like that. Well, they found that with bio dryers and pyrolysis to create biochar, essentially a very dry cake, it actually removes a lot of those harmful chemicals, and it's safe to put onto farming and to gardening. There's many facilities who are doing this currently, and more will be doing it, especially in Europe. And now it's starting to become more and more popular in the United States. And so there's companies out there, and there's also legal help. There's a couple companies that are nonprofits that are encouraging and helping this happen for us. And so this is something else that we need to be aware of. They may come down on us and say, you need to be able to apply this. We're very blessed to live in an agricultural area where we could produce biochar for our family and our friends out here, and they could increase their production up to 50%, I've heard in some areas, which is amazing. Another sessions that we looked at were innovative troubleshooting, and this was the one that I really loved, was talking about the Sentry biofilm sensor. Sam was highlighted in this. Kishan did a wonderful presentation explaining how this sensor is innovative, having biology grow on it to help us understand what's happening in the water. And so it got our name out there. It showed that we're innovative and we're progressive. And there's a wonderful opportunity for people to learn and understand more about technologies that are evolving in the industry. They also talked about side stream cleaning. When you do remove stuff from the process, you have side streams that can be quite harmful. And instead of just putting them back into the plant and hoping that they don't hurt the bugs, you can treat them on the side and then put them back into the system so they're less harmful. That was an interesting thought. There's always process efficiency and improvements, especially to activated sludge, which is where we use the bugs. It's a very finicky process. Our bodies are essentially a plant out here. You catch a cold. Well, the plant can catch a cold too. And you really don't want that to happen. It does. Some people get drunk too much. Well, the plant can get drunk too. So, I mean, it's just, there's things like that where you got to worry about it. And so being able to have those efficiencies in the activated sludge process is really important. Compostable toilets. In Bonnie Doon Road, just an hour and a half south of here, a gentleman was working with a lot of nonprofits to create compostable toilets so that if you do have an emergency, you can defecate into a 10 or 5 gallon bucket, add sawdust, and keep doing that until you're full. Put it over into a compost area, and within a couple months, you then have amazing fertilizer that's safe for the environment and for people. And so I asked him, I said, would that be possible to put it into a digester? And he said, that's an interesting thought. So that's something that in the future we could talk about. And that would give us more gas and give us more energy that we could do, going back to the biosolids. And last, of course, is leadership, but most important at times, we go there and we can learn from each other from experiences. One thing that we can learn is helping to connect with others, understand each other better, skills and concepts to be aware of and to implement. Not everybody is trained with leadership, and so going through different classes helps us expand our understanding and to relate to people better. What was really neat was this time there's a company that's doing water and wastewater specific industry training. A lot of leadership training is geared toward tech, towards retail, those types of situations, and not quite the blue collar, hardworking gentlemen and ladies who are part of this industry. So I thought that was really innovative and interesting. So we're talking with them to see how they can help us. And of course, talking about being a leader yourself, you need to take care of yourself because then you can take care of other people. I want to give a special thank you to Kishan and Tim, who suggested I go to this conference along with my fellow workers. And we had a lot of great experiences there and learned. Appreciate the SAM staff for covering for us while we were out, and also CWEA for providing this wonderful event. And that's it. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this DPR what you said it was, that you add one treatment module? Yeah. And all of a sudden you have potable water? Is that?
Well, that's recycled water, sir. So if we had the ultrafiltration membranes, we will then have recycled water on our system. If we want to go to direct potable reuse, we would have to add essentially a whole new plant.
Oh.
And so it'd be a lot more costly. Okay. However, the state will probably come down on us sooner than later for recycled water. It will probably take longer for the direct potable reuse, the DPR. However, we do have a wonderful company that's right up the road who we could produce for. So either option is an option for us. Obviously, recycled water is much less expensive and much easier to implement.
And what would it be used for, the recycled water?
So recycled water could be used for irrigation mainly. We could use it for other things like restoring water wells, aquifers. We have a aquifer right over here that Ocean Colony uses. That'd probably be the easiest one to deliver to. Montera has wells that are over by the airport. Again, that's not too far away. If any of the farmers out here would like to use irrigation, that they're not too far away from our facility. There are grants and things out there to help us with piping and pumps. So there are opportunities out there. We just have to find them.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, excellent.
Thank you.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Attorney's report.
No report this evening.
Okay, director's reports. Seeing none. Topics for future agenda. The budget will be there. Do we have anything else to do in closed session, Jeremy?
No, ma'am.
No.
No. Meeting is adjourned at 8:59. Let the record.